We're seeing financial institutions implement stronger and stronger restrictions, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to take advantage of that instant payment process now. So why is it that this landscape, this environment has become so hectic? What is actually driving this at the moment?
Proliferation of the sophistication and the maturity, it's very difficult to see a fake from a reality nowadays. So unless you know what you're looking for, it's very difficult for the average consumer to know whether that they're actually being scammed or not. Some people rely on their instinct, and that is a very good alerting point, to say, okay, fine, I don't trust what I'm reading, or I don't trust who I'm speaking to. And then there's mechanisms and approaches that we should take to follow through with that.
Digital payments are growing fast, but so is fraud. Today on ITWeb Business TV, we're sitting down with Ursula Pearson-Williams, the head of fraud at PayInc, to talk about what needs to be done. How should people be aware of different fraud types? What should institutions be doing to try and mitigate the impact of fraud? What collaboration needs to take place between institutions and regulations? Today, we're going to dig under the surface and find out far more about fraud, especially in light of the incoming fraud week. So tell us a little bit more about what the fraud landscape looks like out there. What is it that people should be aware of, and why? Why should they be worried?
I think in South Africa, the introduction of digital payments, instant payments, is really evolved the sophistication and the evolution of fraud. Where in the past you used to have scams, opportunistic scams, you would have fraud and you would have money laundering, which were quite segmented and compartmentalized. What you're now experiencing is the combination and the complexity of those evolving together. So in a lot of the instances, in a single event, you can actually experience a scam and a fraud and a money laundering all in one value chain.
Yes.
And it's not only about that opportunistic approach anymore. It now seems to be far more organized. Fraudsters are developing and creating syndicates. They know their target, they research their target, and it's evolved from opportunistic fraud into a more staggered and purposeful fraud that takes place, which is always far more dangerous because ultimately they know more about you than you know about them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really scary. So digital payments are, as we know, the fact that we can pay instantly is immensely beneficial. But equally, I think we're seeing financial institutions implement stronger and stronger restrictions, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to take advantage of that instant payment process now. So why is it that this landscape, this environment has become so hectic? What is actually driving this at the moment?
I don't think it's unique to South Africa,
Mm.
and I also don't think it's unique to the banking institutions. I think that the way fraud has evolved is that if you look at the other markets as well, they are experiencing the same challenges. If you look at the insurance industry, if you look at the telecoms industry, you're looking at fintechs that are coming in, the gambling industry. What's happening is that the evolution of fraud that has always been there is now becoming more prevalent. And also because it's being reported, we're becoming more aware of it. So the evolution of technology is not only the evolution where we can create the seamlessness and the evolution of payments, but it also creates the opportunity for fraudsters to use exactly the same technology that we're using against us. And unfortunately for us is that we work in a regulated landscape and fraudsters don't. They collaborate. They've got rules unto themselves, but we have to work within the framework that is provided to us because ultimately then we become like them.
Yeah, that's kind of scary, isn't it? Because ultimately consumers are, I mean, as you say, they know more about us than we know about them. Is this because our information is widely available? Like, how is it that they know more about us? And what are the kind of scams that people can or should be looking out for?
I think the assumption is we need to make is that all our information that has been compromised, it is sitting on the dark web and it's ready to be sold. I think that is the first element that we should all consider, both at a personal level as well as an organizational level. And the second thing about the dark web is that you've got technology, but you've also got processes that are sold. So there's ready-made kits that youngsters who are interested in just playing around to see how things work can purchase off the dark web. And once you're hooked and once you get involved in, you then can become a fully fledged fraudster or scammer. And these activities that are available, freely available for people who may not necessarily have a career in line for them, because you also need to consider the economic status of our country from an economic stability, the vulnerabilities that exist, that these opportunities now exist for somebody. So in terms of scams, you mentioned AI and deepfakes. One of the most prominent up and coming in terms, it's been here for a while, but I think we're a little bit more aware of it. I don't know if you woke up in 2023 in January, and all of a sudden every single news article was around AI. It kind of like just happened.
Exploded.
There's been a lot of interest in around AI, specifically around pig butchering.
Did you say pig butchering?
I did say pig butchering.
Okay, I think I'd love you to explain that one.
So pig butchering is associated with romance scams. And there has been recent articles, and even South Africa, our participant banks have been involved in actually extraditing tourists who have gone over for job interviews to land up in almost what is known as scam centers, but that they are held against their will. And ultimately, they are being utilized to scam people around the world, either through telephonic, social media, and basically lure them into a romantic relationship. If they're online, they have utilized AI to change what their identity looks like, so their pictures and their profiles. And with the sophistication that they've got based on the information that they have on you, will profile you in order to change their profile so that you eventually grow to like them and eventually love them. And this whole process is not a quick process. Ultimately, they're luring you into a relationship to be able to extradite money from you in whichever means that they may, because now they have got you in a position where you've learned to trust them. That is the ultimate cause for, the ultimate tactic around pig butchering. The sad thing is that while it may be electronic and digitally orientated through social media, in the South African environment, there are reports where it is physically happening, so that you may actually meet your romantic scammer, and you may have and form a relationship with him only to find out in the long run that you're actually being defrauded out of all your money. It's happening to all age groups. The most vulnerable are the aged, and the second most vulnerable, believe it or not, are our younger children who are in school that are then being brought into these relationships. They get blackmailed because they've shown pictures of themselves, and in both instances there are reports of suicide. So people are losing their lives because of scams and syndicates and frauds.
This is terrifying. And so I think also another scam that I think is important to cover, and is obviously, I find it hard to top pig butchering, but push payment scams are another area where the market is there's a big red flag being raised right now. Can you tell us a bit more about what these actually are, how they work, and why we should be worried?
So push payment fraud is also very difficult to detect. So maybe we start there, because ultimately because it's one of the most prevalent scams that are taking a foot globally as well, is because of the willingness of the payee to make the payment. So when you profile an individual in order to ensure that your accounts are protected based on thresholds or whatever mechanisms and controls the participants put in place, the reality is that when you've made that payment, if it doesn't meet any of those thresholds, it automatically goes through. And the bigger challenge around that is, even though it may have breached some of the thresholds, which sends alerts to the fraud teams within participant banks or institutions, if they do make the call, the individual will actually confirm, no, but I do want to make that payment. Because what's happened in push payments is that through social engineering, through phishing, and through the proliferation of the sophistication and the maturity, it's very difficult to see a fake from a reality nowadays. So unless you know what you're looking for, it's very difficult for the average consumer to know whether that they're actually being scammed or not. Some people rely on their instinct, and that is a very good alerting point, to say, okay, fine, I don't trust what I'm reading, or I don't trust who I'm speaking to. And then there's mechanisms and approaches that we should take to follow through with that. But the thing about push payments is that once the caller or you've engaged with the individual, they push you into a sense of urgency. And because of that pressurization, it's very difficult for you to think through things in order for you to rationalize whether this is actually a scam, or if it's actually genuine. So this is the challenges that push payment scams have, and it comes through a plethora of avenues. It's not just a single identifiable, I definitely know this is a scam. It can come through an email. And once again, if you don't know what to look out for, you're not going to be able to know whether that email is a fraudulent email or not. If it comes through a telephone call, the genuineness of the conversation, the compassion and the empathy that the individuals express through those telephone calls, which are confirmed by the information they have on you, almost forces you into a sense of security, or a false sense of security. And ultimately, you would land up processing the payment willingly, as opposed to knowing that it's fraud, and stopping that payment from going through.
That's so interesting because they're building on a sense of trust, aren't they?
Yeah.
And a sense of familiarity. And then again, the FOMO thing, which is obviously a huge tactic. I mean, we've seen it used on all sorts of retail websites. Only one left. Buy now. It's going to end. Thank you so much, Ursula. That was amazing. I really appreciated having you on this on the show today, and I think you have shared some amazing, if terrifying, insights with everyone. And hopefully, everyone will walk away a little bit more informed.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here today.